Good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the meeting of the council. Please be seated. I'm required to inform you that this meeting is being recorded. This is in line with legislation. If any member of the public or press would like to record the proceedings themselves, please ensure this is done from the public gallery without interfering with business today's meeting. Any member who wishes to speak on any of the agenda items should use the microphones available.
Point of order. Can I request that we thank the public for attending and ensure that we're doing this every meeting, please? I don't see the order. Please, thank the public for attending.
Sorry, can't hear, Mr. Mayor.
When you stand, put your microphone.
Sorry, Mayor. Can I thank the public for attending because I don't seem to do it at each meeting. I think we'll be next couple of days as well.
There are no fire drills planned, so if the alarm does go, can those sitting in the public gallery exit through the doors behind them, and those sitting in the chamber exit through the main doors. And I'd like to thank the public for turning up. Thank you. It is with sadness that I must inform members of the death of a former councillor, Mary Butler. Mary was a councillor for Heaven North Ward in 2012 to 2016. Our sincere condolences have been conveyed to her family. Can I ask members to please stand for a minute's silence for Mary? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The first item of business is declarations of interest. No declarations have been received. Does anyone now wish to verbally make a declaration before we move on to the next business? The next item of business is the minutes of the meeting of the council on the 16th of January 2020. Are they accepted as the true record? The next business is to consider a report of corporate director business and resources on the medium-term financial plan 2020-25. Draft budget recommendations. This is an important decision and I want members to be clear about how to conduct the debate. The Constitution requires that anyone wishing to move an amendment or budget proposal or make a recommendation that relates to the budget must give 2 working days advance notice to the Chief Executive Officer. No notice has been given on any amendments or recommendations. I would ask Councillor Ed Morgan to move the motion as a council speak for up to 30 minutes uninterrupted. A member may not start their speech until I do so by name. Councillor Martin's speech, the motion will be seconded. The seconder may speak for up to 3 minutes or reserve the right to speak later. I will open the debate on the main motion, and there will be an opportunity for all members to ask questions or speak for up to 3 minutes. The main speaker of the minority group, the opposition group leader, Councillor Robinson, is entitled to speak in a period of 15 minutes in reply. Councillor Martin, as the remover of the motion, has a right to reply at the end of the debate on the motion before it is put to the vote. As usual, I will allow the leader to close the debate. Councillor Martin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, in moving the budget for 2020-21, I would suggest to members that the budget process offers us the opportunity to reflect on the journey made, to recognise that despite 10 years of austerity, which has slashed away at our finances, we have faced up to that challenge. We should also reflect on what we have achieved for our borough and what we want to achieve. We should be commended on how we have managed austerity for the last 10 years. However, we must continue to build on the process that we have made and the progress that we have made. That is why this is a budget that offers vision and leadership. It's a balanced budget. It's a members-led budget. It's a budget that sets out a bold, ambitious and an innovative programme which recognises the need to work with all partners, including government. The budget I present to Council this evening is in keeping with our financial strategy and continues with the policy and main approaches to the efficiencies that we have to make, focusing on delivering greater value for money, being innovative and doing things differently, increasing income generation through new and existing services, achieving efficiencies on external contracts and infrastructure, reducing services that are no longer sustainable, and continue to work in partnership with the community and the voluntary sector and ensuring financial sustainability. This budget ensures that the Labour values of fairness, accountability and social justice are at the heart of all decisions that we make. Members will know that local government, along with the rest of the public sector, has suffered from a protracted campaign of budget cutting, which was started in 2010 by a government led by the Conservative Party. And whilst it is acknowledged that the austerity measures had a devastating impact on every aspect of the public sector and the public around, to those of us in local government is all too evident. We've had to make £168 million of savings since 2010 due to the reduction in the amount of funding we receive from government. We have to receive a further £7 million in 2020-21 and even more is expected in future years. There's been a 60% reduction in core government grants over the last 10 years. Nevertheless, good financial management has meant that we are striving to mitigate the long-term impact for the borough and the people we serve, to continue to deliver services that people need and do all that we can to improve the lives of the people of South Tyneside, and in particular for those who are the most vulnerable. We have worked hard to keep all our children's centres open, to invest in our leisure centres, to run the best events programmes in the region, and to protect vital frontline services on which our residents rely. Members are well aware that we continue to experience an unprecedented growth in children and adult care services. It is our biggest financial pressure. Around 70% of our discretionary budget is spent on children and adult social care, and it looks set to continue. Whilst there has been some limited increase in government funding for adult social care, it remains insufficient to meet growth in demand for services. On his first day in office, the Prime Minister vowed to tackle adult social care, yet there are no concrete plans of action. The government needs to follow through on its pledge to bring forward proposals for long-term adult social care and how it is funded. In the Queen's speech, there was a commitment to achieve a cross-party consensus on a sustainable social care system. A cynic could say that this is a sense of déjà vu. A social care green paper was initially promised 2.5 years ago. The adult social care battle is not won, but arguably it has been engaged. Children's social care is not even on the government's agenda. The government must recognise the growing financial pressure upon children's social care, particularly in areas with higher deprivation. There's been an upward trend in the number of looked after children, especially those with complex needs, who need more resources for vulnerable preventative work to avoid children and families reaching crisis. The National Audit Office has said that children's services, including social care, is the only area where nationally overspending has occurred every year since 2010-11, rising from 237 million in that year to 957 million in 2018-19. The government needs to start a serious conversation with local government to understand the true scope of the crisis. Just like adult social care, we are on the cliff edge. Nevertheless, we cannot stand still. We are expanding provision for children with special educational needs, with more class space at Keelman's Way, Lord Blyton and Felgate schools. Our schools continue to generally be highly rated by Ofsted. Last year, around 75% of our young people achieved grades between A star and C. In children's services, we are a government-approved partner in practice. We continue to share our experience and knowledge with neighbouring authorities. In order to meet growing demand for foster carers, we launched our Fostering for Skills initiative, providing training and development opportunities for new and existing carers. We continue to develop our Best Start in Life programme, which brings together services to support young children and families to fulfil their potential, working closely with partners from other agencies. For example, last year we ran, with the support of many volunteers, a number of social clubs providing a free lunch and activities for over 5,000 children. I can announce today that we will continue with that initiative this summer. Every child in the borough up to the age of 11 is offered milk. Milk was statutory in schools until the 1980s, after which it became optional. Most local authorities stopped their milk schemes at that point. South Tyneside Council continued and has never halted the service. All South Tyneside primary schools with catering supplied by the council buy into the milk scheme, and children who are eligible for free school meals, those that attend those schools, get their milk for free. The council will make a financial contribution to this scheme in order to support the health and well-being of our most deprived communities. The price of milk to families was set at £9.10 per term in 2014 and has remained unchanged since. Whilst demand for adult social care is growing, it is also changing. We are working with the independent sector to ensure that we have effective and sustainable provision going forward and continue to promote independence through day opportunities and our Shared Lives programme. However, the number of younger adults with, for example, autism that require intensive support is increasing. There is not always best delivered, and this is not always best delivered through residential care. I can inform members that we will develop additional supported living schemes with 30 new homes, which will provide for flexible support and care on a 24/7 basis, but also offer the person some independence from living in their own home as a community setting. In addition, we will expand extra care accommodation for older people, especially for those with dementia, to live independently in a supported environment. We continue to embed public health in all our plans, recognising the positive impact upon people's health from factors such as housing, environment, transport and employment. We have continued through targeted intervention and taking a whole family approach to reduce levels among pregnant women, and it has now fallen to 13%. We are also lobbying government on introducing a minimum unit price policy to combat the scourge of cheap alcohol and its negative impact that it has upon high-risk drinkers. Members are aware that this council is committed to support the local armed forces community. Our covenant work has made a real positive impact on the lives of our armed forces, the reservists and veterans. But we certainly are not complacent. That is why I have the pleasure in announcing tonight that from April 2020, the Council will extend our concessionary leisure scheme to residents in receipt of a war pension. The introduction of universal credit has caused hardship on many families. As a Guardian leader editorial put it, universal credit is a technocratic solution to a human problem, rolling up 6 benefits into one payment in a way that mirrors a monthly paycheck appears unimpeachably sensible on paper. This council recognises the risk of destitution and isolation that universal credit can mean to the most vulnerable in our community. Let me assure members tonight that we will ensure that no one is left behind. We have a dedicated welfare reform team. Last year, 2018-19, it supported our residents to access an additional 3.2 million in owed benefits and income. So far for 2019-20, we're up to 3.8 million in financial gains. This is a significant increase on previous years. We also continue to work closely with our partners to mitigate the impact of universal credit. Members will know that responsibility for the local welfare provision was transferred from government to councils in 2013. Local welfare schemes are not statutory, and quite a number of councils have withdrawn their schemes. This council, despite a subsequent loss of specific funding, maintains a fund to assist persons in crisis and provide community support in order to ease pressures on vulnerable families affected by national welfare reforms or unexpected circumstances. Tonight, I am recommending to Council that there is an increased investment to the local welfare provision scheme of £200,000. One of the features of universal credit is that due to the current leap year, there will be a small shortfall between the rent charged and the level of universal credit received by claimants. Consequently, this evening, I am announcing that this council will fund the difference so that some of our most vulnerable residents are not impacted further. This Labour administration is committed to addressing local communities' priorities, especially through the community area forums in partnership with their local communities. Recognising the importance of community area forums and the importance of CAF spending money that fits their own priorities, I am pleased to announce to Council that the community area forums will have £1.4 million at their disposal in the forthcoming year. I can also announce tonight that there will be a £300,000 investment in Moncton Stadium in 2020-21. Investment in Moncton Stadium builds on the Council's long-term vision for community facilities in South Tyneside and a decade of investment in the Borough leisure facilities, such as Heaven Central, Haven Point, Jarrow Community Pool and Jarrow Focus. Each strengthens each town's offer. I can also announce this evening that the subsidised shuttle bus service across South Tyneside will continue in 2020-21. I think that I can safely say that the whole community was shocked by the action of mindless vandals that destroyed the much-loved Viking boat at Charlie's Park near Jarrow Hall. After much lobbying from Councillor Margaret Peacock, I'm pleased to confirm that money has been allocated for a replacement. The order is in and the structure will be replaced in coming months in time for the summer. There has also been an increase of £300,000 for area management. Housing continues to be important to us. Despite the current financial situation, we are putting some significant investment in the housing delivery, both revenue and capital. We spend £11 million every year updating our housing stock. This includes routine maintenance and upgrades. Properties are on a rolling programme and constantly refreshed so that we can provide high quality council housing for our tenants. We have already invested £243 million in decent homes work. I can announce that we will continue with an extensive housing capital programme of £16 million in the coming year. There will also be additional repairs and maintenance investment in 2020-21 of £1.1 million, including health and safety work into council stock. One of our housing companies, South Tyneside Ventures, has built over 400 affordable homes over the last 5 years. A further 80 homes will be built in 2020-21. There must be a wide range of housing options in South Tyneside. That is why Centauria Homes has been established, to provide a different kind of housing offer. But it will also allow us to pay money from the sale of these houses back into the council. Council house rents will increase on an average 2.7% in line with government guidelines to achieve on average increases across all dwellings of £2.9 with effect from the 1st of April 2020. 70% of all our tenants will be unaffected by this rise. We know how important it is to have a strong and robust global economy. We remain committed to create a new economic future for the borough. That is why our capital investment programme remains strong, ambitious and affordable. The programme has seen £850 million invested since 2010, with a further £250 million to be invested over the next 5 years. The investment has facilitated growth and improved the borough. We have successfully lobbied government and other bodies for funding, which has helped us deliver on major transport schemes such as Lindisfarne and Tesco's, and we will continue to work with partners for funding to extend the metro system. Phase 3 of the South Shields 365 Master Plan is underway and will provide an improved leisure and retail offer, better links into King Street, a more attractive public realm, and ultimately an increase in footfall in the town centre. We have also been shortlisted for a future High Street Fund. Holborn Riverside plans are on their way with commercial and housing opportunities which will create 1,700 jobs. IAMP is the UK's first employment-led infrastructure project. It has been awarded £42.5 million of funding from the Local Growth Fund. It is a project of national significance and is being developed with Sunderland Council. It is expected that over the first 10 to 15 years, IAMP will support more than £400 million worth of private sector investment, creating 7,000 jobs. Healthier Metro Stations forms part of the North East Transforming Cities Fund bid, with improvement proposed at Chichester and Tyne-Dock Metro Stations. We continue to invest in roads and footpaths, and in the forthcoming year, £5.5 million will be invested. This is the highest amount for several years. And there is also the continuation of the multi-million pound restoration of the North Marine Park and South Shield Seafront. This is to be completed by the end of the calendar year. Climate change is without doubt the defining challenge of our generation. It is recognised around the world and across the political spectrum. The landmark IPCC report on the climate crisis stated that we have just over a decade to radically change in how we organise our societies and economies. The effects of climate change can be seen in the UK and around the world. UK temperatures have already risen. Globally, extreme weather is predicted to become more common and to have a negative impact on all forms of life on the planet. That is why local government, the local state, needs to be at the front and centre in the fight against climate change. Members will know that in July last year, the Council declared a climate emergency and committed to take all necessary steps to make South Tyneside Council carbon neutral by 2030. Every area of Council policy will take into account of the responsibility we have to reduce carbon emissions in line with our 2030 target. We have taken action through reducing our number of buildings, modernising remaining stock to reduce energy use, installation of solar PVs, and a successful recycling trial in Woodburn. The budget supports a commitment to ultimate carbon neutrality with investment in a number of initiatives to support the climate change agenda, where we directly, as a council, have influence. This includes continuing the replacement of street lamps with the energy-efficient LED bulbs, construction of wind turbine and battery storage in Middlefields to increase the use of renewable energy. We intend to extend our recycling village site. We also have the innovative district heating scheme at Jarrow. This will convert natural heat from the River Tyne for energy use in homes and public buildings. Following consultation, we will shortly publish our climate change strategy, setting out other steps which we will take, such as the review of the Council's fleet, increasing tree planting, maximising social benefits through our procurement process, and behaviour change programmes to ensure the Council achieves its target of being carbon neutral by 2030. There is a recommendation for a council tax increase of 3.95%. This equates to around 79 pence per Band A household, in which the majority of houses in South Tyneside fall. We are asking residents to pay extra to help mitigate the effects of grant reductions to the borough. I will remind members that according to the LGIU, 97% of councils plan to increase council tax in 2021, with 93% planning to raise it by 1.5%. So of the 3.95%, 2% of this is the government's levy for adult social care. However, the increase of 2% for adult social care is unlikely to sufficiently cover demand pressures which will continue to grow. Councils have become increasingly reliant on local tax revenues over the decade, and the Institute for Fiscal Studies has noted that the most deprived councils will be able to raise less revenue from increases in council tax than the least deprived councils. These revenues will not keep pace with the rising cost of adult or children's care. Members will be aware that the police and fire authorities are responsible for their own precepts and will increase this by 1.99%. And I can announce again this evening that we will continue to exempt care leavers from council tax up to the age of 25. This helps to ease some of the financial burdens on young people as they progress in the areas of employment and training. It's never an easy decision to raise council tax. We know that many people in our communities are struggling to make ends meet, but financial cuts and government complacency has left us with no other option. I said last year that as a council we simply cannot do everything, and everyone can contribute to help our community of South Tyneside. Last year we launched the Love South Tyneside Social Action Campaign. We have now over 1,000 followers on social media and many examples of groups coming forward to play their part. This February we have asked businesses to step forward and play their part, and to date we have had a fantastic response. Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, the long-term funding of local government remains uncertain. As Professor Tony Travers stated, does the government have a plan, not only for Brexit, but for a range of domestic policy issues which have been eclipsed for 3 years by the struggle over the UK's departure from the EU? This is only too true regarding the future of local government funding. We are still waiting for the outcome of the Fair Funding Review. We call on government to ensure that future funding is fair and representative of need, and that the review does not result in a relative loss of government resources to South Tyneside at the expense of more affluent areas. We should also be lobbying government for a long-term funding settlement for adult social care, which fully funds any new burdens placed upon councils as a result of changing the system to reduce the financial burden upon individuals. The Comprehensive Spending Review needs to recognise funding cuts to councils have gone too far and commit over the lifetime of this current Parliament that government funding increases to each council by 5% per annum. The proposed UK Shared Prosperity Fund should be at least the value of the ERDF and ESF funds that the councils, local councils, should have a central role in how this fund is managed. And we will hold the government to account on their response. Mr. Mayor, there are still challenges ahead. We have achieved so much. We can and will achieve much more. I commend the budget for 2020-21 to the Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Second member to speak or reserve the right to speak later in the debate. Now we move the debate to the main motion. The main speaker of the minority group, opposition group leader, Councillor Robinson, is entitled to speak for a period of up to 15 minutes. Councillor Robinson, would you like to reply?
It's Robertson, not Robinson.
Thank you.
Okay. As everyone's noted, we haven't put in an opposition budget. It's totally impossible when you're surrounded by crooks in suits the paperwork, the documentation. Behind the scenes, we are digging in to try and find out the corruption that's going on. It's okay, Ed Malcolm putting it over because he's on that side. He knows what fabrication is going on. We are the opposition. We haven't got a clue what's going on. It's unbelievable what we're finding so far. It's unbelievable what we're on the verge of putting out there for the public. Yeah? The whole place cooks and suits. So,
Point of order, Mr. President. I find the council is
excuse me. Are you Labour or Conservative? Independent. Okay, thank you. So, that was good. I enjoyed that what Councillor Malcolm said. It now appears that this Labour Council has shown a bit of heart with the things that they came out with, namely the Jarrow Park, the ship thing going in, what have you. Excellent news. But down the lines, I can't help thinking that now that there's an opposition and the dirty laundry's coming out that was normally behind these four walls, and it will continue to keep coming out, and ideally the council will change and we'll end up with a decent Labour Party, decent opposition. Okay? So, the reasons why, on top of that we cannot do an opposition, or we couldn't do an opposition budget, the amount of money, millions upon millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, is either missing or getting shifted about, that we would need a team of accountants to be able to track down where this money's going. Now, Ed Malcolm said before about Housing Ventures, he called it our company. Now, the documentation for Housing Ventures states that it's an independent private company.
It is.
Now, we've got South Tyneside Homes, we've got Central Homes, so the council set up, and this is why we can't do the budget, the council set up these other two new companies. We've already got South Tyneside Homes, we've had since 2008. These separate companies, Central and Housing Ventures, tens of millions of pounds going in. It's in black and white, in Central Homes' accounts on Companies House website. They've borrowed 35 million to date of South Tyneside Council. South Tyneside Council, as Mr Malcolm keeps saying, austerity, austerity, austerity. But this council is borrowing money off the Public Works Loan Board like it's going out of fashion. 50 million's been borrowed this year. A total of 630, if not touching 700 million, is owed to the Public Works Loan Board. And most of the loans are on a 50-year payback. Now, Mr Malcolm, the leader, Mr Malcolm, they haven't got kids, grandkids that's going to stay in the borough in the future. I have, most of us have. They'll be gone when these loans cripple us. They'll not be here to be seen. So these two housing companies that's draining the money from our council, out of our pot, we are getting the debt in their name. If South Tyneside Homes couldn't do the work, I would understand it. But the one housing company that they had, on every letterhead of South Tyneside Homes, it clearly says, owned and controlled by South Tyneside Council. Why these companies have been set up, we can't get our head around, we're struggling. We'll not be able to do a budget until we know where these tens of millions of pounds are going. Yeah? Now, when we're doing our digging, because I've tried to do the budget, the most senior person in this council for finance, Stuart Reid, one of the responses I got when I was asking questions, trying to do the budget, his email, his words, as I was asking where the money's gone to try and do a budget, his reply is, as the funding is pooled with the rest of the council's cash flow, it is not possible to identify how much of each borrowing has been spent. This is public money that's borrowed from the Public Works Loan Board and given to these companies. But the top man who's supposed to control the purse strings, it's his own words. It's not possible to identify how each of the borrowing is spent. Then he goes on to say that the current value of borrowing outstanding with the Public Works Loan Board is 632 million as at 30th of September. The annual interest payable on these loans is 22 million. So again, you talk about austerity again, that they keep on blaming the Tory government for. 22 million a year is in interest. It's literally 1/5 of the spending that the council gets is going to the Public Works Loan Board and they keep borrowing this money like confetti. We can't possibly do an opposition budget till we know where the money's going. Again, we've got the Public Works Loan Board, but we've also, again, tracking down, trying to do a budget. Reply again from Stuart. I asked, is there any other loans from elsewhere? Dear Councillor Robertson, Barclays Bank 5 million, Commerce Bank 3 million. There's another £8 million of confetti. Again, to do the budget, you cannot do a budget, you cannot book a holiday unless you know what you've got in the bank or what you've got coming. So we've had to look into everything and we've got literally nowhere yet. Nowhere. One of the big things of the spending is the members' allowances. Now, we've been trying to do the figures, and the council by law must publish the allowances and expenses paid to all councillors. Because we've dug in, and because we've asked questions that's never been asked before, the hands has gone up now. And the hands up is saying, yes, you're correct, the published spending for last year is incorrect, we're going to review it, and we will put down which councillors are getting broadband, which councillors are getting their phone bill paid, etc, etc, etc. The amount of money that is missing on recorded, documented stuff that's by law got to be published is an absolute disgrace. Tens of thousands of pounds isn't getting published. I cannot do a budget with tens of thousands of pounds missing. Again, we'll go back to our housing companies. One example, I've looked at South Tyneside Homes and the money that they pay out, who benefits from it, what our council money's doing. We've got Councillor Malcolm himself, who has just read the budget out. He is the chair of South Tyneside Homes, as well as being a member of this council. He is the chair of South Tyneside Homes. Money, again, he gets £10,000 for that. I'll repeat the words. Owned and controlled by South Tyneside Council. The rules of the allowance scheme say that a member should only get one special responsibility allowance. Councillor Malcolm has been chair of South Tyneside Homes for 10 years. At £10,000 a year he gets. It's £100,000, yet he already gets an SRA. So I cannot do the figures. There's 100,000 examples straight away. So the members' published accounts, allowances, is totally wrong. I believe that they're going to be published correctly after this year. Time will tell. So again, tracking down the money, or trying to track down the money to do the budget. The Housing Ventures Trust, on their own website, Mr. Malcolm called them our housing company a minute ago. If you visit their website, Housing Ventures Trust, it clearly states South Tyneside Housing Ventures Trust is an independent, private, not-for-profit company. The digging that we've done, reply of George Mansbridge, it is completely independent of the council. Please remember the 34 million that we've loaned them that I'm trying to do a budget with. This totally independent company has had 34 million of this council in this time of austerity. Again, for the budget, I'm asking questions again about the same company and about council money. Stuart Reid, the council has provided a loan facility to Housing Ventures at the end of the last financial year, March 2019, 34 million remain owed to the council by Ventures Trust. How can we possibly do a budget 34 million out the way? You've got a company that has got no employees. 34 million we've lent this company. It hasn't got one employee until approximately 3 months ago. And what happened there was a gentleman who had been South Tyneside Council, South Tyneside Homes, I think for decades as far as I know. He was registered in 2013 as the secretary for this Housing Ventures Trust with Companies House legal document, whilst he was still working for South Tyneside Council or South Tyneside Homes. This company, 34 million it's had, no employees. This gentleman here, he moved, I don't want to say his name, they all know who it is. He moved from this company with a retirement package or whatever it was, with tens of thousands thousands of taxpayers' money. And he literally walked straight into a job with a company who he was registered with as secretary, as Mr. Malcolm says, our housing company. So I'm tracking this money down, and there's golden handshakes going to people. How do you try and do a budget? They can do a budget because they know what's going on. They've got their fingers in the till. We are kept away. Again, the same housing company. I'm trying to track money down. You cannot do a budget without knowing your figures. The council has donated land to the value of £840,000. This is our land, taxpayers' land, private independent company. We've donated £840,000 worth of land. How can I do my figures? Then we'll move on to the expenditure of the council itself. Aside from that, trying to do my figures because I cannot without the proper figures. This year, dozens of copies of the leader of the council credit card. Again, to do the budget, I need to know what money we've had, what money we're spending. I request a copy of them, and I get the redacted version. How can you do figures when you're only getting redacted versions? We need to know what this council's spending, whether it's a member on a taxi, a member going to nice restaurants, Southampton, Birmingham, wherever you want. I cannot do a budget. That's why I haven't done a budget. Because there's so many fingers in the till. Again, what the councillors are spending, what the council's giving councillors, what the council is spending. There's Councillor Malcolm who's just done the budget speech there. Between him and the leader, Councillor Malcolm, they're getting double bubble on the phone bills. I can't do my figures when they're getting double bubble. Yeah? Why should two people be getting paid for the same phone? I can't add up my figures to offer you a budget. Again, all this council's assets belong to us. They belong to the public. They're for our kids and our grandkids. Yeah? I'm trying to do my figures for my budget. I can't. You then find that assets of the council are getting sold to the leader's family. Cheap as chips. I cannot do my figures. I cannot add up to do an opposition budget when I don't know what I've got to do with. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak or question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and keep this fairly short and sweet for once. I mean, I was going to ask about how the budget, the allocation of resources in the budget, reflects the commitment to the climate emergency. And I know, obviously, you have spoken about that already. But the one thing that did catch my attention was talking about investing in better links to King Street. Okay. Now, last month's meeting, there was a petition presented to this council, 1,700 signatures, calling for an urgent review into the impact that the opening of the interchange has had on bus services. Now, the response to that petition calling for an urgent review was the offer of a meeting in June this year, 6 months after the petition was collated. Could you explain how the resources are going to be used to ensure that the people who currently can't access the shops in King Street and the marketplace since the opening of the interchange and the rerouting of buses, which Stagecoach warned this council would happen, how are we investing to make sure that those people can access the shopping centre and ensure that there is footfall in King Street?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For 10 years we've been subjected to incredible austerity cuts by this government, and I know how hard it is for every council to deliver a budget. So I'd like to thank, first of all, the officers for all the hard work they've put into doing this, because I know how difficult it must be for them to deliver a budget like this. And I've just got one quite simple question that I'm hoping somebody can answer, because it's nothing too much. I'm just wondering if there's job losses associated with this and what level those job losses are, just so that we're aware of what's happening to staff really, rather than anything else, because they're the people who feel it the most. It's really difficult for them. And I think if there is, then we need to be going to the government and telling them yet again that they've got to stop this, because looking at it from future years, looks like there's more cuts and more cuts and more cuts to come. And just with regards to what Councillor Francis said there, you may not have spotted the email earlier because I was concerned about the 6-month wait for that meeting. But we have now been offered a meeting in March, which is a great improvement, I think, on the June original date that we were offered.
Also, Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, to be fair, it's quite a well-balanced budget, but I think it's quite a caring budget as well. I mean, after 10 years of austerity, the economy is now turning around. We're out of Europe, and I believe it's a good future. It's far better. Now, I think that the budget is fine. You know, all budgets you can take holes in, but I think it's well-balanced, and I think it's good.
no more. Before asking the leader to close the debate, I will ask Councillor Ed Malcolm to reply to the debate. Councillor Malcolm?
Right, thanks, Chair. Just on the two questions from Councillor Francis, we're looking at that at the present time. We need to be looking at it. I know that it's of concern to many people on how to get through to King Street. We all looking at that. Councillor Hampton, there'll be less than 20 job losses on that. Mr. Mayor, I have listened to a number of opposition debates in this chamber over the years, but I've got to say, I have heard nothing so baleful, so asinine, and so absolutely poisonous coming from the opposition benches. I have never heard anything like it in all my born days. Local government finance and budgeting is a complex issue. Now, if there is a thought that there are crooks and bandits in this council, then go to the police. That's your best bet. Despite, local government finance and budget is a complex issue. Despite the narrative of some, it is not a simplistic solution. It's not simplistic, and there are no simplistic solutions to what we face as a council and a community, as a community. The budget process is primarily a political process. That is, it's policy and not finance-led. The budget from the Labour group is a balanced, viable, worked out over several years. Fully appraised, which ensure this council will thrive, not merely survive. Our residents would expect and deserve nothing less than their council to continue to exercise leadership for the communities for which they serve. Councillor Robertson doesn't understand the borrowing situation. Now, okay, let's say it was semantics. Now, Accord Ventures, our company, we set it up, but it's an independent company. We lend Ventures money at a competitive rate from the Public Works Loan Board. We get that money back. And we have provided, or that company has provided 400 houses, decent houses, that people would not have had. You can go on like that, and I'll tell you why you go on like that, because you have nothing positive to say.
If you have nothing to say in this life, you
have no answers. You have no answers.
That's why
you have no answers.
Can we have sit down? Stop.
You have no answers. You have nothing positive.
What are you talking about? We know what the talking about.
And the opposition, please be quiet. Please be quiet. There's nobody interrupting you when you are talking. Just you. Wait, what you said, we've had that turn. No, you've had that turn. Carry on, Councillor Martin.
That's why this budget sets out proposals for the future. It is focused around delivering our vision for South Tyneside and the people and the communities that we represent. I've heard nothing from the other side of the chamber tonight that makes me feel confident that that this budget should not be supported by the majority in the chamber. Members opposite can indulge in the populism of opposition, but this Labour group has made tough decisions over the last 10 years. We have ensured that this council continues to deliver in a time of unprecedented economic and financial challenges. So I move the budget, Chairman. Mr. Mayor. You do better.
Excuse me.
You put a stop there, he's pointing. Tell us not the point, we're all points.
What are you doing?
Pointing at him, but he should be pointing us. Start picking, look at
That's
start putting
simple.
all over the
That's
place instead of just one side of the room.
That's simple. I will ask the leader to close the debate on the main motion and approve the recommendations made by the cabinet in the report. Councillor Martin.
Well, far be it for me to raise tensions even further in the chamber. Mr. Mayor.
Please do.
I mean, call the police by all means. I think we called the councillor called the police on a charity once and said he would resign.
Documented
He would
everything.
resign. Improper with that charity. He besmirched the good work of that charity. He besmirched the reputations of hard-working people in that charity and the clients, and he promised to resign, and he's still like here, and by the way, he's still claiming his allowances. Mr. Mayor, budgets are never easy. Budgets are never easy, Mr. Mayor, because we have to make choices and we have to make difficult choices. And it's like what Councillor Ed Mountain says, over the years, we've had to take off our budgets nearly £200 million. And of course that means we've got to be creative in the way in which we operate the budgets, be innovative in the way in which we deliver our services. And what we've done is I think we've come up with a balanced budget that is operating within Labour's social justice values, looking after the most vulnerable within our communities, whilst also maintaining our ambitious transformation plans for the future. And I think it's important to point out that the council budget this evening also includes a levy for the police, the fire and the transport authority, all of whom have their own challenges in providing those services, all of whom are operating within tight financial envelopes. Mr. Mayor, it's also worth noting that the council tax revaluation next year turns it's 30 years since we've had the revaluation of properties in this country under the council tax system. The council tax is a system for funding local government. It's fundamentally out of date. It's fundamentally out of date. It's not fit for purpose. The council tax is a regressive tax because it flows money predominantly from the poor rather than it being from the rich, which is what tax is all about. It's estimated that 8% of a low-income family's budget goes on a council tax, where only 1% of a high earners go on council tax. And of course, it's over the past 5 years, council tax nationally, right across the country, has increased by a third. As my colleague Jim McMahon said in the House of Commons yesterday, could you imagine if over the last 5 years, national insurance, income tax, VAT, fuel duty, and goodness me for the MPs in the House of Commons, beer duty, had increased by a third over the last 5 years? There would be an outcry from the public, and there would be an outcry from national politicians. And the reason there isn't, the reason the government allows an outdated system like council tax to fund local authority services, statutory services, services that we are legally obliged by Parliament to provide, the reason they allow this antiquated system to continue is because it's easy to pass the buck on the local councils. It's easy to say it's their responsibility to balance the books. even though the amount of money that we're receiving from government is declining year on year. You'll all recall we were given the health, we were given public health as a statutory duty to provide. As soon as they gave us it, they slashed the budget. And then they slashed it again, and we're being told it's going to be slashed again. Yet despite the fact that we have to still provide that service within the statutory framework of government, and demand for public health is rising, the amount of money that we're getting from the government has decreased year on year. Mr Mayor, council tax cannot be expected to bear the burden for adult social care or children's services. It simply can't. No amount of sticky plaster by saying we'll give you 2% ring-fenced adult social care will resolve the problem. And therein lies another issue with council tax. It takes no account of regional variations. South Tyneside Council increases its council tax by 1%, we get something like £600,000. Leafy Surrey increases its council tax by 1%, it raises £7.2 million. There is the regional imbalance that needs to be addressed by a new national funding formula. Mr Mayor, unless the government act, and unless there is a mature conversation with local government about how local services are going to be funded in future and how local councils can meet the aspirations of their local population in future, then I'm afraid there is going to be more councils following the lead of Tory-controlled Northamptonshire, which will face financial collapse. So for the sake of the services that we all rely on, for the sake of the services that we are required to provide statutorily by central government, let us hope that this new government, in the financial statement in March, that the new Chancellor announces that he is prepared to have a grown-up, mature conversation with local government about funding for the future. So in conclusion, Mr Mayor, in supporting the budget put so ably forward this afternoon by my colleague Ed Malcolm, and I want to place on record the thanks of all of my cabinet colleagues as well as senior officers, because the thing is, Councillor Robertson, you can't prepare a budget of this magnitude on the back of an envelope over a couple of weeks and firing off a couple of emails. As soon as this budget is agreed this evening, lead members with senior officers will be sitting down once again and we'll be preparing for the 21-22 budget. That's how intensive this whole process is and how difficult and challenging it is for senior officers and senior members. So I congratulate Ed on the budget he's proposed this afternoon. Mr Mayor, let's recognise the challenges that we face, but let's also recognise the opportunities that we can embrace in terms of the transformation of our towns. The fact that Mountain Stadium is getting that extra investment, the fact that we're protecting some of the most vulnerable people in our society. And you know, Mr Mayor, when we have that honest conversation with the electorate, full of bluster and innuendo, and as Ed describes it, banal nonsense, they respond positively at the ballot box because they recognise the huge challenges that we face as a local authority, and we will not shirk from rising to those challenges in the future. I support the budget, Mr Mayor.
Legislation now requires that the main vote is taken on certain decisions related to the setting of the budget. I will therefore ask the acting head of legal services to conduct a recorded vote.
Thank you. If members could vote by indicating whether they are for or against the motion by saying for or against when I call their name. Amar. For. Anglin. Absent. Atkinson.
For.
Bell.
For.
Boyack.
For.
Brady.
For.
Carter. Dean.
For.
Dick.
For.
Dix.
For.
Dixon.
For.
Donaldson.
For.
Duncan. Ellison.
For.
Flynn.
4.
Foreman.
4.
Francis.
Abstain.
Gibson.
4.
Hamilton.
4.
Hay.
4.
Hetherington.
4.
Hobson.
4.
Keegan.
4.
Kerr. Absent. Kilgour.
4.
Lees.
4.
E. Malcolm.
4.
I. Malcolm.
4.
N. Maxwell.
4.
N. E. Maxwell.
4.
McCabe.
4.
McHugh.
4.
Milburn.
4.
Milburn P.
Abstain.
Abstain. Peacock.
4.
Perry.
4.
Porthouse.
4.
Proudlock.
4.
Punchin.
4.
Purvis.
4.
Roberts.
Abstain.
Robertson.
Abstain.
Sewell.
4.
A. Smith.
4.
M. Smith.
4.
Stevenson.
4.
Strike. Absent. Taylor.
4.
Thompson.
Abstain.
Trainer.
4.
A. Walsh.
4.
M. Walsh.
4.
Welsh.
4.
West.
4.
The motion is agreed. We'll have 5 abstain and 45 for. Motion is agreed. The next business is Mayor's Communications. There are no Mayor's Communications to report on this occasion. The next business is to consider a report of the Corporate Director Business and Resources on Capital Strategy 2020 to 2025. I'll ask Councillor Ed Malcolm before we move the report. Councillor Malcolm?
Well, thank you, Chairman, Mr Mayor, rather. The Council is planning to invest over £330 million through its capital programme over the next 5 years. This will build upon the £1.6 billion public and private sector investment secured for the Borough since 2010. It's critical that this investment aligns with our key objectives around regeneration, housing, climate change, etc., so that the funding makes a real difference to residents and communities in the Borough, from increasing prosperity as well as maintaining our core assets. Supporting our medium-term financial plan, this capital strategy, which complies with statutory regulations, sets up a framework for strategic decisions making and developing our capital investment plans. These plans include identification of resources such as assessing external funding where possible to minimise the draw upon the Council's own resources. It also details the governance arrangements around our capital investment plans, ensuring that resources are used effectively, sustainably, and that spending is maintained within affordable limits. Council is asked to approve the capital strategy plan as appended to the main body of the report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. Is that seconded? Yes. Are there any questions or does any member wish to speak on the report? Is the motion agreed? Agreed. The next business is to consider a report on the appropriate direct business resources seeking approval of the Treasury Management Strategy 2020-2021. I will ask Councillor Ed Malcolm to formally move the report. Councillor Malcolm?
Oh yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is prepared to comply with the local government legislation and the Chartered Institute of Public Finance Codes of Practice and the guidance from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. It outlines the Council's Treasury Management Strategy for 2020-21 in two main areas. Part 1 concerns the South Tyneside Consolidated Loans Fund and covers the Council's borrowing and prudential and Treasury indicators. The indicators have been used to set the framework within which the Treasury Management Strategy has been developed. Part 2 concerns the investment strategy which governs the investment of the Council Pension Fund and South Tyneside Homes cash balances. The strategy has been complied alongside the Council's budget. It is based on interest rate forecasts available at the time of writing and outlines factors that may affect decision making in 2021. Council is recommended to approve the Treasury Management Strategy for 2021. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions that does any member wish to speak on the report? Is the motion agreed? Agreed. The next business is to receive questions under Procedure Rule 8. 4 questions have been received under this rule. The first question is from Mr. A.J. Thorburn, who reads as follows. In 2016, South Tyneside voted overwhelmingly for Brexit with 62% majority of the vote. Now the Conservative Party have 80 seats parliamentary majority. The government is committed to getting Brexit done and carrying out the wishes of the people of South Tyneside. What is the Labour Council in South Tyneside doing to support the government's commitment and vision of getting Brexit done, and working with the government to open up post-Brexit opportunities for the region and unleashing South Tyneside's potential? Mr. Thorburn will receive a written response to his question within 7 days of this meeting. The second question received from Mr. J. White, which reads, Nexus as a publicly owned body overseen by the Labour-run Tyne Council, has just made a decision to award a £500 million contract for the new metal rolling stock, the Stanger and Swiss firm. The Council had the power to pressure Nexus into awarding the contract to Hitachi. However, by not awarding the contract to Hitachi, 250 staff have been laid off at Newton Aycliffe plant. A huge blow for North East manufacturing. I would like to know what pressure, if any, did the Labour Council apply to Nexus to avoid this disastrous decision. Mr. White will receive written receiver.
Can I beg your indulgence, Mr. Mayor? I know that it's not standard to speak to the sort of questions that have come in, but I think it's important that we just cover up the sort of quite glaring mistruths that are in this question, because it needs to be sort of in this public arena. I know that Mr. White will receive a written response. Can I first of all deal with the procurement of the metal fleet, which was run by Nexus on behalf of the Joint Transport Committee, which isn't just the 5 Tyne councils, it's also Durham County Council and it's the Conservative and Northumberland County Council. The total value of the contract, £362 million, and bidders were directed not to exceed their fixed threshold limit. One of those bidders did exceed that threshold limit and they were ruled out immediately as per the procurement legislation. There is robust legal frameworks for procurement that Nexus followed throughout, and it would be unlawful for any member of the Joint Transport Committee or any local authority member of the Joint Transport Committee to apply pressure on Nexus who follow the legally compliant framework. In terms of the comment regarding Hitachi laying off 250 staff, as Hitachi have said themselves, there is no direct link to the metal fleet award from this contract, and if the questioner had cared to check his facts, he would have discovered this. And finally, can I also point out that whoever the successful bidder was going to be, in this case it was Stadler, they have had to comply with using local companies, and Nexus have worked with the local lab to make and manage these supply chains. Far from this being a disastrous decision, this is one to be celebrated for medical users in the future and local companies who will work with Stadler as part of the local supply chain. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. White will receive a written response to his question in 7 days of this week. The third question received is from Mrs. S. Stonehouse and reads as follows. First of all, let me congratulate South Tyneside Council on continued success of events and entertainment provided in South Tyneside Summer Festival in the Bench Park, which has entertained thousands of people over the years. We have one perennial issue in the area close to the Bench Park regarding visitors parking in Nelson Avenue, Myra Drive and Bench Park Road. When the summer festival is on, the residents dread the vehicles being parked over their drives. The letter left in the street and the noise late at night when visitors return to their cars. What proactive steps can the council undertake to discourage visitors to some concerts from parking in the nearby resident streets, Nelson Avenue, Marina Drive and Bench Park Road, and instead of encourage them to travel by public transport? Mrs. Stonehouse will receive a written response to her question within 7 days of this week. Excuse me. The final question is from Mr. P. Bristol and reads as follows. Will the council state the commitment to plant 2 new trees for every tree felled, how many trees were felled and how many were planted in South Tyneside in 2019? Mr. Bristol will receive a written response to this question within 7 days of this week. The next business is to deal with petitions received under Council Procedure Rule 9. One petition has been received under Rule 9. I will explain the procedure to the following petition. The appropriate member will present the petition using the subject and petition and number of signatories. We will not debate the petition today. After the petition has been presented in accordance with the Constitution, I will move that it be referred to the appropriate body. Petition proposing any development proposals on Felgate Green Belt. I will now ask Councillor Kilgour to present the petition. Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The petition reads, we, the undersigned, most strongly oppose any development proposals on Felgate Green Belt. The objection submitted by Laverick Hall Farm Limited clearly does not demonstrate exceptional circumstances which justify making changes to the green belt within the borough. We urge South Tyneside Council to reject this submission, which is in favour of a wholly unacceptable development. Thank you. There were 510 signatories of members in the borough.
Well said, Councillor Kilgour. Thank you, Councillor Kilgour. In accordance with standing orders, I propose that the petition stands referred to the appropriate officer for further consideration. In accordance with standing orders, I propose that the petition stands referred to the appropriate officer for further consideration. Is that seconded? Seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. The next business is to receive motions under Procedure Rule 10. 2 motions are to be considered under this rule. I will explain the procedure for motions and I will ask the proposer of each motion to move the motion and he or she may speak for up to 5 minutes. I will then ask whether the motion is seconded. The second item will speak for up to 3 minutes or reserve the right to speak later in the debate. The motion will then be open to debate by members who may each speak for up to 3 minutes and may move any amendments. Motion 1 has been submitted by Councillors Robertson, Roberts, Pete Milburn, Francis and Thompson. Councillor Robertson, please present the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you say, the motion is to request the council to alternate the times of meetings, because 90% of the meetings are 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the daytime. I understand that 90% of Labour councillors are not working for various reasons, but the vast majority of the independents are working, and we do struggle to get there. I understand that maybe the law says that employers must allow time off for council meetings if you're a councillor, but that isn't always practical if you're working for a small employer or working for yourself. So I think that we are requesting that the meetings are alternated 10 AM, 5 PM, but not all through the day. And I hope the council will back the request. We need to attract, obviously, more new blood into the chamber, and ideally 90% of them will be employed. So the problem's going to keep on rearing its head as the Labour councillors get voted out and new blood comes in. Yeah? So, he who laughs last, laughs longest. Can I request an name vote on that, Mayor, please?
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Roberts, you may either speak for up to 3 minutes or reserve the right to speak until later in the debate. Thank you. The motion is now open to debate by members. Do any member wish to ask a question or speak or move on the amendment? Councillor Atkinson?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment. Can I ask that the clerks hand the amendment out, please?
Point of order, Mayor. Is there not a time scale for, sorry? Is there not a time scale for the amendment? I believe that's... No. It's not? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, are you ready? Okay, I've been instructed by Mr Mayor to start reading the amendment out. So the amendment reads, the Council requests that consideration be given to fluctuate Council and Committee meetings between standard working hours and non-standing working hours. Council notes, 1, currently the majority of Council and Committee meetings are held during standard working hours. 2, whichever time a council or committee meeting is held, members of the public and elected members who are in full-time employment or education may have difficulty attending a meeting despite clear legal guidelines that elected members are entitled to time off their employment for public service duties. 3, there will be council staff availability issues to take into account, and whether arranging meetings outside standard working hours has a financial impact on the council's budget. In addition, we need to consider how many changes may affect the work-life balance of our employees. And 4, in seeking to encourage more people to consider serving as councillors, it is imperative that a realistic balance is achieved between council and committee meetings being held between standard working hours and non-standing working hours. Therefore, Mr Mayor, this council resolves that this matter is referred to the Council's Constitutional Committee for their consideration. I would just like to add that I think the figures that you couldn't find for the budget, you couldn't find either around the chamber, because I think you'll find more than 10% of Labour councillors do actually do work. Thank you, Mr Robertson.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson. Is the amendment seconded?
Seconded.
Yeah. Can I respond to the amendment, please?
The amended motion is now open for debate. Yes.
Can I respond to the amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. So, in response,
Sorry,
I can't
speak at the end.
Right, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just regarding the amendment there, which has come as a bit of a surprise to some of us, I would just preamble by saying if we're seeking good decisions to be made on behalf of the public we represent, I think that last-minute amendments like this should at very least be circulated prior to the debate, which easily would have been possible because these obviously were printed and could have been distributed, half an hour or so before the meeting commenced. Let me also say that I appreciate that there does need to be a balance between meetings in and outside of standard working hours. Not everyone works 9 to 5. Obviously, we have shift workers as well, and there may be some consideration need to be given to council staff in addition to elected members and, of course, residents. That said, in order to best represent the residents of South Tyneside, I believe that we need elected members that broadly reflect the community they serve. Looking around the chamber, I don't necessarily see that at the moment. And at the risk of offending colleagues, I think I might be the second youngest person elected to this chamber. And according to average life expectancy, I'm already halfway to the grave. Many people who, because of their age or in full-time work or education, may see current arrangements as a barrier to their participation in local democracy. There are various factors that might put people off the idea of standing for election as councillor, but this motion proposes one step that could be fairly easily taken to make local democracy more accessible to residents and elected members alike. When so many meetings are held during standard working hours, there's an obstacle not just for elected councillors, but more importantly, members of the public in full-time work or education to attend meetings and be able to see for themselves what decisions are taken in their name. I consider myself quite fortunate. Although I do work full-time, I have the benefit of flexible working and public service leave, and I make use of both in order to attend the various committee and the community area forum meetings. Many people don't have that luxury and would simply be unable to attend many of these meetings under the current arrangements, either as residents or elected members. Voting against this motion may well dissuade residents in full-time work or education from considering standing for election and could also prevent members of the community from attending these meetings. Serving the community as an elected member should not be reserved for people like me, whose employer offers generous, flexible working arrangements. It should not just be for those enjoying retirement or those who are financially comfortable or whose job is flexible enough to drop days and work part-time, but for any resident who wishes to serve their community and to participate fully in local democracy, either as an interested resident or as an elected member. I would therefore encourage members to vote for the motion.
Would you like to reply to this?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mayor. When I got stood as an elected member and I got voted in, we asked the council if we're going to put on these committees, if they couldn't get them on a night time, if they couldn't do them on a night time, could they remove work from the committees? We're still waiting for an answer for that 11 months down the line, 12 months down the line. We're still asking for that now. Unfortunately, I'm an HGV driver. Sometimes I'm sent down the country. I can't see my employer, I can't take this road for you. I've got to be back here to do this, it's impossible. So some employers will let you go, like David says, some can't. Unfortunately, as we know ourselves now, these are given committees and we've asked to be taken off them. These are not going to do it. We also know that we've got Labour councillors who haven't even been put on committees. And so they could probably do their jobs that we can't do. So if they could, pass them committees on to the Labour councillors who can make the meetings, that haven't been offered in some of these meetings. Thank you.
Point of order. It's quite clear in the Constitution that committees have got to be politically balanced. That is why the opposition members are put on committees, because it's in the Constitution. Now, I'll leave it at that.
Point of order, Mayor. I understand what Councillor McCabe is saying, which makes it all the more reason for making it so that the meetings are alternated and we can have balanced committees and there's no excuses from the full-time working councillors. It gives it more power and reason to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the amendment agreed? Are there any further amendments? We will now vote on the amendment. Amendment motion, sorry.
I requested the
it. It's already agreed.
Point of order. Yeah. Who's agreed it? Just one man in the corner can't say it's agreed, sir, Mayor. One man.
The amendment's been agreed.
By who? By who
They
then?
need to vote on the amended. The amended motion, yeah? Yeah. The amended motion.
So, sorry, point of order. I think Councillor Robertson, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what he's asking for is a named vote.
Yeah,
Vote on that.
The name vote for the amended
Who
motion.
wants a name vote?
The amendment's been agreed, yeah? We're now voting on the amended motion, yeah? Yeah. We're now voting on the amended motion.
Yes.
Name vote? Have we got 5 people to support the name?
6.
6. Stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I'm happy to support the name vote.
6.
Thank you. Good. Members, please indicate whether they are for or against the amended motion by indicating either for or against when I call their names. Amar? Anion? Atkinson? Bell? Boyer? Brady? Carter? Dean? Dick? Dix? Dixon? Donaldson? Duncan? Ellison? Flynn? Foreman? Francis? Gibson? Hamilton? Hay? Hetherington? Hopton? Keegan? Kerr? Gilgour? Lees? E. Malcolm? I. Malcolm? N. Maxwell? N. E. Maxwell? McCabe? McHugh? J. Milburn? P. Milburn? Peacock? Perry? Porthouse? Crowler? Punchin? Purvis? Roberts? Robertson? Sewell? A. Smith? M. Smith? Stevenson? Strike? Taylor? Thompson? Trainer? A. Walsh? M. Walsh? Welsh? West?
The motion is agreed with 54 votes for. Motion 2 has been submitted by Councillor Thompson, Francis, Robertson, P. Milburn and Roberts. Councillor Thompson, please present the motion.
Mr. Mayor, as a member of the opposition in this chamber, my role is to serve the residents of this borough to the best of my ability and to hold this Labour Council to account if and when possible. It's the first part of this role that this motion addresses. Whilst I am doing everything I am capable of to serve the residents of our borough, some residents might be forgiven for thinking sections of our Labour-led council are not doing so in relation to working as closely as possible with our borough's elected members of Parliament. Worryingly, many residents have a perception that no acceptable working relationship exists between our council and our current constituency MPs for both Jarrow and South Shields. This motion asks that for the benefit of the people that we all here serve, actions are taken to improve the situation, so that we have the power and influence of our MPs behind our council and working together efficiently for everyone in South Tyneside. I don't fully understand the history of how we ended up in this situation. It would normally not be my concern or business, but when a situation, perceived or real, causes concern to the people of the borough, it is my business. What is clear is that we must accept that we have many issues in our borough that would benefit from our council and our MPs working closely together. Should it not be the case that our elected council leadership and constituency MPs are working closely and efficiently in a unified manner for the benefit of the people we serve? More so in that they are all representing the same Labour Party. Can anyone here say that at this time, possibly more than any before, this should not be a fundamental requirement? I ask that all members do the right thing for our borough and vote for this motion. Thank you.
Motion seconded. Councillor Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When Councillor Thompson first mentioned this motion to me and asked me for my support, I had to give it some careful consideration. I'm aware that some issues over the past few years may have led members of our community to conclude that the relationship between various elected representatives was perhaps an area that could be improved. But if I'm honest, my first reaction was to think this was not our business to try and address. After some consideration, however, I agreed to second this motion because although I have no desire to delve into the internal issues of a party I don't belong to, there is something more important here: effectively serving the residents of this borough. It should go without saying that my seconding of this motion is not a criticism of any individual or group involved. It's merely a request that positive action should be considered moving forward. Despite obvious party political differences, I appreciate the dedication and effort that the MP for South Shields has shown since first elected as a constituency MP. And although Jarrow's MP is relatively new to the role, I also wish her the best in serving the community she represents. Just as I hope that we in this chamber can put our party political differences aside when it comes to making decisions in the interests of the people we serve. I'm mindful that this council has to work within its own sphere of influence and is unable to compel an outside individual or body to take any action recommended here. What we can do, though, is take proactive steps to try and improve the current situation where previous attempts may have been unsuccessful. At the risk of stating the obvious, we are where we are. The events of the past are water under the bridge, and there's nothing any of us can do to change that. What we can seek to do is change the future. I'm not interested in the airing of dirty laundry or reopening old wounds, but in trying to find a positive way forward that gives residents of the borough the confidence that elected representatives at all levels are able to collaborate effectively where appropriate to best meet the needs of the residents they are elected to serve. I would encourage members to vote for this motion to help try and restore public confidence that elected representatives can rise above past disagreements and can work together cooperatively to serve the people of South Tyneside.
There's a motion on the motion now.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment. Mr. Mayor, I've been election agent 3 times for 6 MPs as regards the area. I'm very sympathetic to the open paragraph. I believe we should work constructively with political party differences and members of parliament, but I believe that the paragraph encapsulates the whole resolution. So I propose, after the end of the 4th line, we read all as follows.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
The amended motion is now open for debate.
Obviously the 2 MPs have just been voted in May, and I don't believe that the council should have welcomed them in and even had them at one of the full council meetings. It's still not too late to invite them to the full council, to congratulate them, etc. It can't be down to one man to just decide who to like and who not to like. There's 53 councillors in this room. Yeah? And a perfect example of not working with the MP is St Clair's Hospice. We've got Kate Osborne now, who is going to fight. She's demonstrated that she's fighting for St Clair's Hospice, but yet still, after 14, 16 months, this council's silent. They should be shoulder to shoulder with the CCG and the NHS and the government for future palliative care. But because in Malcolm wants a void between them, we've got just the MP fighting for St Clair's, and this council's silent, other than Will Flynn, John McCabe, Angela Hampton. The MP should be working on our behalf, shoulder to shoulder with this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read this motion, I was quite surprised, actually. As many people know, I work exceptionally well with the MP on a regular basis. I speak to her maybe once, twice, 3 times a week. But I also know that she works very well with other members. I know that she does things with various members in this chamber. But what really concerns me about this motion is the council resolves that, and it was action point 2. And I had some real major concerns with that, because I talk to residents, and residents aren't always happy with the council, they're not always happy with councillors, we all know that. Residents aren't always happy with me. And when those residents want to raise an issue about the council, or about the councillors, or about me, for that matter, they might want to do that with their MP. And they want to do that with their MP in a space where they feel safe and able to go and confident that there won't be the person or the people or the council that they're raising concerns about there. They don't want to come into the council building to raise concerns about me, and I'm using me as an example because I don't want to criticise anybody else. Those people do not want to come into the council building to meet their MP to raise a concern about something that they think that I have or haven't done in a building where I'm there. It's an absolutely ridiculous idea to have MPs, constituency officers, in the council building. I don't know of any MPs that do that, and I think this is an absolutely horrendous idea. I agree with what Councillor Flynn said. Delete everything after the first paragraph, which I do think is quite a good paragraph, that we should be working together. Irrelevant. But the thought of having MPs, constituency officers in a council building, just to me, is not democracy, it's not fair to the residents, and it's not giving them the opportunity to raise their concerns in the way that they should. So I support what Councillor Lynn said.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I've listened with very great patience tonight about a number of items. Can I just say that the MPs were elected in December, Councillor Robertson, they weren't elected in May. It was December where the MPs were. I'm the party political officer for Jarrow CLP, and I reiterate what Wilf has said about working with that. Recognise what Councillor Hampton's saying with regard to Emma Llewellyn book. You know, I don't think this motion should have come to this chamber at all. It is a political attempt on behalf of the opposition to cast doubt and aspersions upon what is a very well disciplined, hard-working, coherent group of councillors called the Labour Group of South Tyneside. It encompasses a whole host of talents. It also is, when I look at various people, a vacation for a lot of people who have given up careers, who have given up money, who have given up a lot to come and serve their communities, whether that meeting is at 6 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm looking at a really hard-working bunch of people. I'm a bit sad about the disparaging remarks that have been made tonight. And these paragraphs below the paragraph that we have put on the amended motion are just perceptions, and the wrong perceptions of what we do in here. We as a Labour group, for many, many years, going back before you were born, before everybody else was born in here, have always worked. Labour councillors and Labour Party MPs work and work and work to serve their communities. And I take it very, very, very personally that you carry disparaging remarks, and this is just a political attempt to get yourselves on the camera, to make your voices heard, to go out to the public and say, you know, we're holding to account. We are working very hard, as my colleague tonight, Ed Malcolm, and I must pay tribute to him personally tonight for the hard work that he does on the budget, and for people to make disparaging remarks about civil servants. I find that wholly wrong. It's not the way I was brought up, it's not the way I would behave, and I apologise on behalf of the opposition for some of the disparaging remarks.
Councillor McCabe has given the impression that all is well, so we just ignore the recent well-publicised evidence in the press, on social media, showing the problems within the local CLP and the problems, the divisions between the MPs and the CLP. We just ignore that.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Councillor Thompson doesn't have a right to reply because we're debating the amendment.
No,
Excuse me, Councillor Malcolm, where is the amendment?
The amendment was moved by Councillor
A
Flynn.
verbal amendment. Verbal amendment. We have a written amendment if we're going to consider an order.
Point of order.
Verbal amendment is legal.
I think the opposition need to do the homework and research before they come in here. Quite clearly.
Point of order.
Move the vote, Chair.
We will have a vote on the amendment.
Move progress.
Nobody can move, speak. No,
We will have a vote on the
Chair,
amendment.
if you get it, then people speak, we can reply.
Can I say a point of order?
You all agree on the amendment?
Talking.
Anybody disagree? Amendment. Already voted on it. We'll have a new vote on the amended motion.
Mr. Mayor, you chose what it is, because you validates for the fees.
We'll have a new vote on the amended motion.
Mr. Mayor, we've already had a vote.
Mr. Mayor, sit
We've already had a vote.
Order the mayor, will you sit down, please?
Nobody bullies me.
You do the bullying. You do the bullying. Everybody knows you're the bully. Ali Malabe, the bully, he's 40 feet.
You're not the mayor, you can't stand up when it suits you, mister.
What's the amendment? Amendments agree, yeah? Yes. The motion is agreed.
Yeah,